charge. Oh, but this time he made it juicier. He said, because Chrysler is owned by Fiat, or has a dominant position, his last charge was, the president is secretly working with the Italians to move jobs to China. I'm telling you, folks, he is coming after the Irish next week, and I am telling you, in real trouble. You're laughing, but who wants a president that will knowingly, repeatedly tell you something that he knows is not true? No. And when all of this happened, they put it on television. They ran an ad. And the more they were criticized, the more they upped the ad value. When I was a kid, if I got my hand caught in a cookie jar where it wasn't supposed to be, I turned red in the face and I took my hand out of the cookie jar. You got to give it to Governor Romney. When he gets his hand caught in the cookie jar, he just digs down for more cookies. I want you to send him a message tomorrow. You don't have to be from Ohio to want your president to tell you the truth when it comes to jobs for your I'm for President Obama because, as Allison said, he's got a much better plan for the future. He knows what works. What works is what works here. We had all that cooperation after Sandy. You love that? Yeah. We have all the cooperation in the community college. You like that? Yeah. That's the way you create jobs. You look all over America. The places that are doing well have government and business and foundations and universities and colleges working together. What is Obama's plan? Invest in the new technologies that we know are going to grow. In information technology, in biotechnology, in clean energy, in modern manufacturing, in modern agriculture, and train and educate people to do that. He has invested in preschool, in the race to the top, and the finest student loan reform in my lifetime. Next year, if the president is reelected, here's what's going to happen for everybody. You can say when you make it happen. What's at stake here. The good news is we still rank near the top in the world in the percentage of our young people going on to college. The bad news in the last decade is we dropped to 15th in the percentage of our young adults with four-year degrees. And we all know why, don't we? I mean, the costs went up, the aid didn't keep up, the economy went down, and people became terrified that they couldn't borrow enough money to stay in. So here's what President Obama and the Congress did. Thank you, Allison Schwartz. Here's what they did. They changed the old system where we paid the banks a fee and guaranteed their loans at higher interest rates to a new system in which every college in America that participates in this program certifies the students. They get the loan at lower interest rates, and then this is the most important thing of all, they have, starting next year, every single student in the United States of America will have the absolute right to pay those loans back at a low fixed percent of their income for up to a year. That will revolutionize the future, will allow people to graduate. Nobody will have to drop out again. So, what's the Romney position? First, he wants to have a $5 trillion tax cut. Then he wants to spend $2.8 trillion on money on things the president doesn't want to spend money on, like $2 trillion on the defense budget that the Pentagon says they don't need. And over $700 billion on Medicare insurers, not Medicare recipients, that the AARP says they don't need. Romney wants to convince every senior in Pennsylvania that he knows what's good for them, and the AARP has become their worst enemy. That's a pretty tough sell. He just wants to give the insurers money that they're not going to need. So when you ask him, well, how are you going to pay for that? He said, well, you'll just have to see me about that after the election. But Governor, you just told us the debt was a big problem, and you just added over $7 trillion to it. How are you going to pay for it? We do know some things. He has made a commitment to cut investments in all those things I mentioned, in research and development, in biotechnology, in information technology, in clean energy. Pennsylvania alone has 4,000 people working in the wind energy business, electrifying 180,000 homes, and you haven't even started with what you could be doing here to own the future, be independent, and export our energy instead of having to import. He even wants to repeal the Obama plan, supported by management and labor and environmental groups, to double car mileage over the next few years, which will cut your gas bill in half, create another 150,000 jobs. He wants to repeal it so you'll have to spend more on gas. I couldn't make this up. But the worst thing is, he wants to repeal that student loan reform, give the $60 billion in subsidies back to the banks, raise the cost of the loans, make them harder to repay, increase the college dropout rate, and compromise the economic future of the country. I want Barack Obama to be the next president. Because I like the health care bill. I like the health care bill, and so should you. I do. Because of the law's requirement that 80 to 85% of your premiums has to go to your health care, not profits or promotion, over $1 billion is paid in refunds to Americans, including 575,000 families in Pennsylvania. 3 million young Americans, 19 to 25, are now insured for the first time on their parents' policy. Next year, 30 million Americans will be able to buy health insurance for the first time, including millions with pre-existing conditions. Listen to this. I have said this and I'm blue in the face. I hope people will believe me now. There's a huge article on the front page of USA Today a couple weeks ago explaining that exploding healthcare costs were the reason millions of Americans did not get any pay raises in the last decade. Their employers had to pay for it in insurance premiums. Now, under Obamacare, all over America, people are looking for economical ways to hold down the cost and increase the premium, the quality of care. Like the Geisinger Group, in eastern Pennsylvania, they'll guarantee that if you have to go back to the hospital for a few months after they work on you, whatever the reason is, they'll pay for it, and it can't be used to increase your premium. There are things like that going on all over America. So guess what? For the first time in the last 2 years, inflation in healthcare costs has been 4% for the first time, listen to this, in 51 years. What is Governor Romney's position? Repeal the healthcare law, go back to the old insurance pricing policies, tell the people with pre-existing conditions to go to the emergency room. They ain't getting health insurance. This is the worst of all. And to cut the Medicaid program by a third over the next decade. Now, a lot of people don't know this, and I know it's cold, but this is important. This will tell you something about what's at the core of the two candidates. Medicaid provides health insurance for low-income kids. Most of them are in working families. Their parents go to work every day, and they can be productive because at least they don't have to worry about whether their kids can go to the doctor if they get sick. But 61% of Medicaid goes to two other groups. Elderly people on Medicare who don't have any more money and don't have any place to live but a nursing home. Medicaid pays that. We're going to cut that by a third to give me another tax cut? Who would you like in Pennsylvania? So wait. To decide whether Aunt Maudie or Aunt Mary gets kicked out of the nursing home. And the final group are families, many of them with good, solid middle-class incomes, whose children have autistic conditions or cerebral palsy or developmental disabilities, who would be broke if they didn't have Medicaid to help them care for their kids so they can go to work in the morning. What would we be thinking if we allowed this to happen? I know what